Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as it is going to be a fairly dry week. However, it is going to be cold for most, very cold in some places as well. It's not the sort of wintry cold that we can see this time of year. It is this more stagnant, colder pattern, as we do have a big area of high pressure stuck right over the top of us, generally some chilly upper air temperatures, and we'll see an inversion at the surface. That's where the surface temperatures get even colder than those upper air temperatures, because normally the surface temperatures are warmer than the upper air temperatures. As we get to the surface, we get the sun strength on the ground, heats up the ground, so generally our 2 meter temperatures are warmer than what they are higher up in the atmosphere. However, that is where an inversion comes into play, and what we see instead is the surface temperatures being much colder than the upper air temperatures, and it's all due to the fact that we've got dry, higher pressure, and it means at the surface we see lots of radiation, all of that warmth, that little warmth we develop through the day, escaping towards the atmosphere very quickly overnight, and it just means we get this real cold layer stuck at the surface, and that's what we're going to see for much of this working week. However, into the weekend and start of next week, it will be turning a bit more unsettled once again, and it does look like next week we are going to see a pretty unsettled, maybe even stormy pattern for a period of time. And then into the lead up to Christmas, we could see something a little bit more blocked once again, but it is too far away to say with any real certainty. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, to start on the live radar, Storm Dara has now completely cleared. It's well into Europe, and it is actually sort of disintegrated away into a weak area of low pressure, a bit of a cut-off low actually now, and it's all this sort of fragmentation of precipitation. You can see though, across eastern and southeastern areas especially, we do have a few showers moving in, mostly light and patchy, and these are showers coming in off the North Sea, so we do actually have a pretty brisk easterly wind. This sort of pattern later on in the winter with some colder air masses across northern Europe could actually develop into quite a lot of snow. But given the upper air temperatures are chilly but nothing amazingly cold, it's just cold rain for the time being. Elsewhere though, further northwards, we've got clearer skies away from the cloud and lighter rain, and that's where the temperatures are dropping away significantly tonight, already across Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland and Scotland, widely down towards freezing. And for many areas, especially Scotland, we get down to kind of -5 to -10 a lot of the evenings this week. You can see further southwards and eastwards, where the air mass is actually colder, it's milder, and that's because we're seeing more mixing of air, because we've got a stronger breeze, and that means that we don't see that real cold layer develop at the surface. By no means is it mild, it is still pretty chilly, but it's just nowhere near as cold as it is further northwards. Now, if you do have a look at the latest UKV now, you can see that precipitation in the far southeast clearing away through this evening, and for much of the rest of this week there'll be bits and bobs of cloud around, but generally it's a very dry week, and I'm going through this pretty quickly, and you can see there's a few bits and bobs maybe Thursday, Friday, but generally pretty dry, maybe a little bit more precipitation through Friday and Saturday, but really not too much going on. And you can see from the upper air temperatures, as I said, it is colder in the southeast at the moment than the northwest, but the northwest are actually seeing those colder surface temperatures because of an inversion, and we'll see why. It's because this area is right under the centre of the high. Throughout the rest of this working week, the air mass will actually increase, but for most at the surface, it will just get colder and colder. The surface temperatures could be 5 to 10 degrees below what the upper air temperatures are showing. Normally it's the other way around. Normally we're 5 to 10 degrees above what the upper air temperatures show. So a real flip, and this continues for much of the week, and then eventually a colder air mass actually returns in from the north. We see a slight orientation shift in the high pressure system, and that could turn us even colder through towards the weekend. The reason why we've got the colder conditions in the north is because, look at this, we're slap bang under the middle of the higher pressure, very little movement of air, whereas in the southeast we've got this subtle easterly breeze, and you see that by having a look at the mean wind speeds. You've got no wind at all through Northern Ireland, much of the Republic of Ireland and Scotland under the centre of the high, and that means those temperatures are able to plummet. That cold layer of air, the surface doesn't get disbanded and mixed, whereas further to the south and eastwards it's not windy, but it's a little bit more breezy, and that means those air masses do mix a lot more. And this pattern continues for much of the week. See, during the middle of the week, latter part of the week, we could see lighter winds elsewhere, and that's where those temperatures could drop away further southwards as well. So do look at the overnight temperatures tonight as we head through into Tuesday morning. You see where we've got those lighter winds, got the inversion. It is freezing cold into Tuesday morning. Further south, we're still chilly, but 5 or 6 degrees, and there's very little diurnal range because we are still under an inversion, just not as significant as it is further northwards, only 5 or 6 degrees at best during the day, when in the north, hardly getting above 1 or 2. Into Wednesday, it's a similar story through the morning, -3 to -5, quite widely in the north, and again it's the afternoon, freezing to maybe 7 degrees at best. Into Thursday through Wednesday, evening temperatures rapidly dropping away in the north. Once again, a bit more precipitation around and cloud might hold those temperatures up slightly more, maybe 7 to 9 degrees. And then finally into Friday and Saturday, another cold day on Friday. So the temperatures are slightly colder further southwards. That's because we've got those lighter winds and that slightly colder air mass moving in, only 3 to 6 degrees. And then as we head into Saturday, the frosts are in the south, and that's where we've got lower wind speeds, and you can see it's really chilly into Saturday once again. So it's not a classic wintry sort of week, but it's going to feel like it out there. We're not going to see any snow, no real chance of that. Frost definitely in the north, but for most it's just going to be a really chilly, cold week. But we're not going to see much happening. It's going to be fairly stagnant, fairly dry, just one of those really chilly, dry winter weeks as we see a classic high pressure inversion take place. Now, do look at the latest GFS. You see why we've got this big area of high pressure holding on for much of this week. Eventually, going into next week, it does get broken down by lower pressure, and this is where we could see something slightly more unsettled or stormy. Big uncertainty exactly how intense these lows will be and how quick they will be to move in. It's fairly slow here and takes its time, and a bit of a colder air mass actually comes in from the northeast for a time, and there is a bit more of a signal here of some higher pressure trying to develop towards Scandinavia, so hints of something a bit more blocked as we can see the lead up to Christmas. But as I said, no real concrete data at this stage. All we can see really is very blocked and high pressure dominated this week, westerly flow returning next week, and then maybe blocked again in the few days leading up to Christmas. If you look at the latest GEM, broadly very similar, high pressure taking control at the moment, westerly flow returning next week, and then right towards day 10 again, a bit more high pressure blocking to our north, but nothing too major at all. And then finally, if we compare it to the ECMWF, which is probably the most interesting run this evening, again, high pressure is in control. That westerly flow breaks through into next week. It's a bit more of a flat westerly, still would be milder than the other runs were showing, as they're showing a bit more of a northwesterly. But eventually, into the longer term, we actually see a break. A big area of high pressure starts to develop to the north of Iceland, towards Greenland and the North Pole, and it tries to push in a northeasterly or easterly, but doesn't fully come off. Nonetheless, interesting though, for those days leading up to Christmas. Now, to finish by looking at the latest ensembles, you see very changeable over the next couple of weeks. Very dry for the sort of short to medium term, then turns a bit more unsettled into the following week. But really, no massive signal from the temperatures, other than it's probably going to be around average, hovering slightly below, maybe slightly above, but more towards those lower ends. And you see there was a bit more of a colder cluster there into the sort of 5 days lead up to Christmas. But at this stage, no huge definitive signal. You see the 2 meter temperatures are chilly for the foreseeable future, not getting much above the mid-single digits. And if we do finally compare it to the ECMWF ensembles, broadly very similar, hovering around average for the foreseeable future. A bit more precipitation as we head into next week, but at this stage, no huge overwhelming signal. Very changeable, dry for the time being, more unsettled into next week, with it being pretty chilly for the rest of this working week. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.